And we start here with human rights. And what are they? Well, human rights are what we're born with. They are our rights to live on this planet. They don't come from any governments. They're not awarded to us in any way. No appointed official says, I will give you extra human rights today because you've been a good person. No, they are the basic rights we have to exist in the world. And the United Nations say that it doesn't matter, of course, about your race, sex, nationality, ethnicity, language, religion, or any other status. You are a human. And you have the right to life and freedom from slavery, torture, freedom of opinion and expression. You have the right to work, to be educated, and many more things that comes from the United Nations. Well, there's certainly nothing wrong with that. Of course, everybody should have those freedoms. But where did they originally start from? Well, back in England, King John was in charge in 1215. AD, and the Magna Carta was signed, and this Magna Carta is generally recognised as the first document to give human rights to Anglo-Americans, and it formed the legal justice system, or the basis of the system, which we still use today, and it did control the behaviour of royal officials and other officials as well, so it gave rights to the people. Now, after the Magna Carta came the English Bill of Rights, which formed the basis of the British Constitution. So the Magna Carta started it all off, and then the English Bill of Rights, which has now all been formed into the British Constitution. Now, if we go across to America, the Magna Carta and the English Bill of Rights were drawn on to incorporate the US Bill of Rights into the current US Constitution. Now we have the various constitutions of different countries, which are kind of all based on the same thing. So in 1948, the United Nations produced the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which basically set out universal global fundamental human rights. And it turns out to be the most translated document in the world. But of course, just because it's translated, it doesn't necessarily mean that they abide by it. There are 9 of them in all, but we're talking about no racial discrimination, have your own civil and political rights, you could have your own cultural rights, no discrimination against gender, no torture, rights of children. Now go over to makemeclever.com and look at the human rights, what are they section. You can see those listed, you can click on them and read the full details of each ones. But not just international, global, United Nations rights and conventions, there are of course local and national rights and conventions. Things like, just recently the rights to not to wear a face mask, perhaps, the legal rights of parents, minors, etc., caregivers, security staffs, different rights to use and hold drugs and things like that. So there are many, many variations where you have these rights. These are actual national laws, and I've included them here on your human rights because they are your rights to maybe your rights to legal representation and things like that. Now, how are they enforced? Well, it's difficult. There are enforcement agencies. The Committee on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights monitors participating members, people that look at the actions of the state and its people, and they identify areas that, well, of course, they're doing well in this human rights. Progress has been made here, but we still have issues in these areas. Amnesty International goes further with a global movement campaigning for a world where human rights are enjoyed by all, basically helping to fight abuses of human rights worldwide. Human rights abuses are on the increase in all countries across the US and Europe. Some of those abuses against rights came to the fore with the COVID pandemic, where rights of freedom of speech, freedom of movement, etc. were stopped. Now, some of those may be justified in the pursuit of safety and security for society, but many governments around the world have kind of carried this to excess and gone beyond what is necessary